Lewis in the Black Horse Pub. Good morning. Welcome to Mirador Television, broadcasting out of the Black Horse Pub, or as a mirror on the wall says, Black Horse Beer House. I like that. Beer house. Much more descriptive than public house, really. Anyway, that's where we're broadcasting from. It is Tuesday, the 19th of March, in the year 2024. And for those of you who like such things, let me tell you what the weather's going to be. It's going to hit 12 degrees again. Pretty balmy weather at the moment, and it's going to get warmer as the week progresses. Tomorrow, it could reach 15. Dropping back to 13 and 12 towards the weekend, but nonetheless, not bad. And plenty of sunshine around tomorrow. Today, we're going to get some drizzle and a gentle breeze. But it's not going to be a bad day. It's not going to be the sort of day that we've been subjected to a few days ago. So that's the scene that's set for us to take a look at what's on in the news today. And then a little later, we're going to rerun the first episode of our, I keep on to say award-winning, we never did put it up for an award, a documentary, The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town, which on one occasion got 2.5 million people watching it. Not bad. They would have put it about 15th in the ratings in the entire country. Not bad at all. And then we're going to go down memory lane a bit, look at some of the things that we've done. And I would warn you, we are quirky, very quirky. We don't believe in studio walls or soundproof booths. We like to be out and about amongst the hustle and the bustle, which is what life is all about and what we should be reflecting, which we hope we do. In fact, sitting here in the bow window of the Black Horse is rather pleasant because I see school children going to work. Ha 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 ha. Actually, most of them are going to school. And their parents going to school. Oh, actually, they're going to work. But the hustle and bustle of life in Lewis, which is reflective of life in the UK, which in turn is reflective of life in most parts of the world, in many parts of the world. An impatient motorist, a couple of kids wandering across the road, not looking where they're going. People waiting to cross the road, pushing the buzzer or the button to turn the light green. And there is a typical scene. Somebody lost in gazing at his phone and not looking where he's going. I hope the people driving their cars aren't doing the same thing. Oh no, never mind. Let's take a look at what's happening in the world today. And in the papers, we've got, well, we start off, strangely enough, with the Sun today. And newspaper headlines: Kate pictured in public and a key Rwanda vote. Aha! At long last, something is happening on Rwanda. Not bad. All in all, it's only taken about 2 years to get it to this point. The Sun. Great to see you again, Kate. The Sun's front page features the first photo of the Princess of Wales, out and about since she underwent surgery in January. Kate was spotted by a member of the public with Prince William at the farm shop in Windsor after weeks of wild conspiracy theories and online bullying, saying, they don't quote what the bullies say, nor should they. It's all a nonsense, that those online bullies. It just shows the vacuous nature of their minds. A reference to gossip and rumours, which has swirled on social media. Many good things about social media, but some of the bad things are that you get a lot of unfounded gossip and people believe it. Newspapers have dropped in sales because of social media. I'm not saying they shouldn't drop in sales, but if you're substituting social media, and we have some fairly responsible stuff here. Mick Symes runs Lewis Present and does a very nice job. And there are a couple more that are very helpful. One or two of the fringe ones have battles erupt on them, one way or another. Let them get on with it. If it helps their mood, temperament, so much the better. Anyway, the Daily Mail, a royal special, the image the world has been waiting to see. Smiling Kate out walking with William. But royal special 2 is a bit different. Harry and Meghan are downgraded by the palace. The Daily Mail claims the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have been downgraded on the official royal family website. Profiles of Prince Harry and Meghan have been replaced with a much shorter entry. The paper's front page also features a picture of the Princess and Princess of Wales, first published in the UK by The Sun. I read that rather badly. What it means is that the paper first that of her seen out and about, not the first ever published in The Sun. Sounded like it, didn't it? The Daily Express. Prime Minister confirms he is still committed to deportations timeline. Migrants chosen for first flight to Rwanda in the spring. The Daily Express leads on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's hopes that the first deportation flight to Rwanda will take off in the coming months. Up to 200 migrants have already been selected to be among those on the first flights, the paper reports. wonder if they'll be given wine with their meals. I wouldn't mind going if there's a glass of wine in it. The Times. Sunak risks losing a key vote on Rwanda bill. Oh, here we go on the downside. But the government's Rwanda policy faces a key test in the House of Lords when peers vote on the legislation. The Commons rejected changes to the proposals on Monday, but peers from Labour and other parties are expected to try and alter the plans in the Lords. Metro. How are we doing? Yes, we're doing all right. A popular leader inside number 10. Somebody waving at the camera. So popular, I haven't a clue who he is. Celebrity 16 to 8 fast. Doubles risk of dying. Oh, I think there is a fashionable slimming plan. And it says, if you take it, you double risk of ending your life. So that's what it means, yeah. The Metro leads on a study which claims intermittent fasting, an eating regime where adherents restrict food intake to limited hours in the day, almost doubles the risk of dying from cardiovascular disease. The paper also pokes fun at Rishi Sunak with its reference to Barack Obama's visit to Downing Street on Monday. Popular leader inside number 10. Ah, that's who it was. How quickly we forget. Funny, isn't it, how popular leaders become after they're in power, and also overseas, where his own people are very suspicious of him. Then that's the way of the world. The Daily Telegraph. Reeves, which means the deputy Labour leader. Britain faces a 1979 moment. And councils launch new war on motorists as half of drivers face fines. The Daily Telegraph leads on Labour's Rachel Reeves, promising a 1979 moment, referring to the election of Tory MP Margaret Thatcher. In a speech on Tuesday, the Shadow Chancellor is expected to promise a decade of national renewal if her party is elected. The paper also reports on a second photo release by Kensington Palace and taken by the Princess of Wales, which appeared to have been edited, this time featuring Queen Elizabeth in it. The Mirror. Keir Starmer. I will not let you down. Labour leader's message to Mirror readers as he outlines his plans to fix Britain and tells the Prime Minister to set an election date. The Mirror leads on a pledge by Keir Starmer, telling the paper's readers that he will not let you down. The Labour leader will repair the damage caused by years of Tory neglect, the paper says. Like other front pages, the paper also reports on the Princess of Wales saying The palace is planning her return to duty after her surgery. The eye. Energy customers set for payouts worth billions in a scandal that's bigger than PPI. The paper says energy firms could be forced to pay out billions to customers after a judge ruled that power firm Engel, is it Engel or Engie? Engie hid additional fees in business bills. Hundreds of thousands of firms could be affected, which the paper says could make the PPI scandal look like peanuts. Financial Times. Deloitte, that's a big consultancy company, launches the biggest shakeup in a decade as the market slowdown booms, or looms rather. Don't know how slowdown would boom. The FT reports on the news that Deloitte, one of the big four global accountancy firms, is poised to overhaul its business structure. Its main image is of US President Joe Biden, who has spoken to Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the first time in weeks. The Daily Star. Race to snaffle 13 billion pounds of gold lying on the bottom of the Caribbean Sea for 300 years. Woohoo! This time next year we'll be millionaires, says the headline. The Star says divers intend to recover gold bullion, apparently worth some 13 billion pounds. The gold sank to the bottom of the Caribbean after a British ship sunk a Spanish galleon 315 years ago. But the paper says there is uncertainty over who owns the haul. There we are. Nothing terribly stirring about the paper. I'll go over the I'll go over the weather again. It's going to be 12 degrees with a gentle breeze. Today we can expect some drizzle. Tomorrow, scattered sunshine. And a temperature of 15 degrees. Wow, you can almost go sunbathing in that. But today the low is only 8. And tomorrow it's going to be 6. So a bit cooler first thing. 13 on Thursday, 12 on Friday, and I'm not quite sure. Let's have a look at the weekend. Saturday 11 and Sunday 10. It's going to slowly go downhill. Get cooler. I's afraid that that's the case. So there we are. Them's the headlines. The Rwanda issue rumbles on. Sunak says he's going to get one of those planes in the air if it kills him. And it just may do that. There are still members of the House of Lords that are determined to stop the bill. I have every right to, of course, but I don't hear much about what they propose in place of it, which makes it's a bit like saying, no, you can't go out. What should I do instead, Dad? I don't know. Sometimes I think we need to treat these people like children. Um, I I don't see any reference today to press freedom again. It is amazing how politicians feel that whenever it comes to criticizing the press, they've got the backing of the public. And maybe criticize for absolutely everything else, but they feel that they've got the backing of the public. And that's very dangerous. It's easy to follow the crowd. Very simple, in fact. He says this. Oh, yes, I like the sound of that. Let's take it as fact. The fact of the matter is that it is we people in the media who uncover wrongdoing. Police and judiciary don't do it. I'm not saying they don't do it ever. Of course they do. But it's us who discover when things are not going well. And in many ways, the post office scandal would not have broken if it hadn't been for some fearless reporting. Because we do get threatened. Oh, yes, we do get threatened. We're made to feel as if we've broken confidences or we're talking to our hats. Well, sometimes we do, but we're human. Everybody talks through their hat at some time. So it's not unusual that we do as well. But also, most people talk some good common sense. So it follows that we do. When we express our disappointment at the handling of the local economy, local matters, by the present party in power, we're reflecting the views of a large portion of the community. It's those who want to guard their favourites at all costs who pour scorn on the reports. It's amazing how many times we've been proved right. And the doubting Thomases have been left muttering an and an still unwilling to admit that they're wrong, but facing incontrovertible evidence, unable to defend their corner. So be careful when you say Hayes is full of hot air, Hayes is full of rubbish. You may be right. But then again, some of the things I may say may well have an element of truth. And there is no reason whatsoever why we shouldn't get the odd thing wrong in getting the odd thing right. And it's amazing, particularly when we go through our archives, some of the things that we've forgotten about, that we shouldn't have forgotten about. Just because of the weight of issues that we have to face, and which we shouldn't have to. It would be marvelous if we had no need for the press except to tell pretty stories, nice stories. It would be great. but we have not reached, nor do we look likely to reach, such Shangri-La in the near future. Now, it's equally as important that we should be able to put everything in context. And we live in a town that is famous for history and famous for its defense of ideals. The Battle of Lewes in 1264 was fought by a group of nobles, barons, under Simon de Montfort against King Henry III, I think it was, because he broke the promises of Magna Carta and had huge parties which they paid for. Enough, they said. We don't mind you partying, but we do mind you using our money to pay for it. And he paid no attention. And so they rode into town, or more precisely, they rode into the priory, where he was having yet another feast, and said, "Oi, we said enough was enough. Stand and fight your corner," which he did. And I think they estimate that there was about 30,000 men in that battle. About 15 on the king's side and 5 on the baron's side. But the king's men made a strategic error, broke ranks, opened up their line, and de Montfort got his knights in behind them, and that was that. Goodbye. And then later, of course, Tom Paine faced charges of sedition for writing about the rights of man. And the issues were much the same. George IV assumed, through the divine right of kings, many rights and privileges which, he was absolutely right, only God had given him. Our Tom didn't assemble an army, but he used the pen mightier than the sword and wrote tracts and books about the injustices that the system of governance poured on the heads of the citizens of not only Lewis, the entire country at that particular time. He was a thinker, was our Tom. They say he wasn't a particularly pleasant man. I don't know. He never invited me to any of his parties. But certainly his arguments were persuasive. And the king had him put out of his life. He didn't manage to slay him. He did manage to have him sent back to the colonies, to the Americas. And that's the beginning of the end because we lost the colonies. It's amazing how civilized it was because apparently George IV, who spent a lot of time in Lewis as the Prince Regent, George IV was walking along the streets of London, and I think it was somebody like Ben Franklin, or one of the senior American statesmen. And they nodded to one another, and there was no angst, no animosity. You beat us fair and square. You've taken back what you consider to be yours. An end to it. Nowadays, it would go on and on and on. You have guerrilla warfare and bombs and mines and long-range rifles and all sorts of things. Anyway, let's go back to that time, those times, shall we? And let's enjoy, and we will enjoy at this time every week at 9 o'clock, or right after the news at 9, each morning. We'll give you the story of Tom Paine in a theatrical type of way. Let's
In Saxon times, it was known as Lewes. The modern term for toilet might have come from it, I suppose. But the town became respectable and is now known as Lewis. Lewis, not Lewes. But its original name does come from Saxon times. In East Sussex, nicely tucked under the shelter of the South Downs, has had this high street for longer than written records go back. Pretty normal sort of UK high street, really. Typical shops and stores each side of it. Looks just like High Street UK. High Street UK, from John O'Groats to Land's End, have all got a history. But this little stretch of road has a violent and bloody history. And that history reflects much of the history of the country itself. A pint pulled from a tap is the tipple of most Englishmen, I suspect. They sure tippled in Lewis in the past. This pub goes back to 1742. There's a list of the landlords to prove it. Today, sitting on the high street, it's one of the 16 pubs in a town of 16,000. 150 years ago, there were 63 pubs in Lewis and 18 breweries. And in those days, there were only 9,000 people. Wow, what a tall tale. Yes, but true. And over the next few programs, I'm going to take a closer look at some of the bloodier and more sensational events that have occurred on this seemingly normal high street. But right now, I'm just going to paint a general picture of this tiny English town, before I get to the bloody and the exotic. The high street is dominated by a Norman castle, one of the oldest Norman castles in the country. It was built not long after the invasion of 1066. It housed the Norman garrison, who ensured the people living inside its walls were kept safe. Indeed, Lewis was a walled town, and there is brick-by-brick evidence of the 4 gates that gave entry to the town. By the way, Lewes isn't a corruption of Lou. It's the Saxon word for a hill. And if you thought that Lewes had lots of pubs, it has far more hilly roads, far more even than the rest of the country, I think. The modern-day Lewes is well used by its people. Lots of shops, markets, and even tea rooms. It also has a lot of parades. At the end of the school year, a ceremony takes place called patina. All year long, pupils design and build exotic costumes ready to parade down the high street.
Raphael, I walked onto the high street in Lewes a couple of years ago to be greeted with a lot of children running around in funny costumes. What on earth is that all about?
It's called Moving on Parade, and it's something we started 16 years ago. It started from a wish of parents to bring more art into schools because they see how much schools struggle demands of the government, and they wanted to support the school in that. So we started something called Patina, which is Parents and Teachers in the Arts.
All right.
Moving on Parade celebrates the transition from primary to secondary education of all the children in Lewes District Council.
Very colourful costumes. How do you decide what the costumes are? You're the artistic director, so you better give me a good answer on this.
So every year we have a theme, and the theme this year is Wonders of Our World. Last year we asked the community to suggest different artists that they would like to see on the parade, and loads of suggestions came in, and we shortlisted the huge list into 16 schools, which was the amount of schools that took part last year. We had Frida Kahlo, and we had Picasso, and we had Van Gogh, and we have Giacometti, and we had Andy Warhol. So they doing illustrations and designs, and then the patina artists take all the children's idea and adapt it into a practical design that the children are actually able to make in a couple of days. We invite about 8 or 10 people from every school to come and learn the skills of the carnival costume, and they start to make the big make that the school going to carry. And after that, the patina artists going into the school and work with the children on their individual costumes. We're trying to really do it as a enjoyment, getting people together. They're all gonna meet in the secondary school later on. We're trying that they'll meet each other beforehand as well. So we're doing events all year round for the benefit of the whole community, not just for the year sixes.
You do other things. You said you go to the schools. What do you do in the schools?
So our next event is on the 22nd of April. It's called Dance Your Socks Off. And because the theme this year is Wonders of Our World, we thought it'll be really fun to have an evening of teaching flamenco, bhangra, and the sirtaki with world food. We're going to have sushi, we're going to have international cocktails, we're going to have professional dance scholars who are going to teach the dance, and it's going to be a really fun event, and that's for children as well.
See, cocktails. I told you Lewes is a drinking town.
Yeah, we're
Right.
pretty good at cocktails. Growing every year, so we making contact with our twin towns. We're making contact with Lewes in America. There's a group of them artists from Lewes in America coming to Lewes in June. We made contact with them, and what we would really like is to use this format in other places, because Lewes is the only place that we know of who celebrates their moving on from primary to secondary schools, and it's people that hear about it, they are impressed, and it will be really nice for other people, other children in other communities to do the same.
Yeah, I did realise it was unique to Lewes and a very unusual operation. Well, how do the children react to it? I mean, generally speaking, do you get great support from the kids?
Yes, we do, and because it's been going for so many years, it becomes it becomes a part of the cultural calendar of the town. So young children know that when they get to year 6, they'll do the moving on parade, and all the siblings did it, and they've seen the rest of the older ones doing it. So it's kind of something that they look forward to.
I'm known for wearing strange costumes. As you can see, my hats are still there in this episode, so I don't think I should be marching, but I most certainly will come to the cocktails.
Great.
Raffaella, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
The adults have their turn, and on November the 5th, the biggest Guy Fawkes celebration anywhere in the world takes place. Exotic costumes, burning crosses, effigies stuffed with fireworks. Rousers, that is a banger to you and I, are tossed casually into the street. And almost every citizen of the town, old and young, takes part. There's a bit more to the bonfire celebration, though, than just the gunpowder plot. In 1553, Queen Mary was determined to bring Roman Catholicism back to England. Right here on the High Street, she burned 17 people at the stake who wouldn't convert. The dungeon, where they were held before being so horribly slaughtered, is still here, up these steps, being the last walk the condemned men would take. It was a horrible death. They were put into tar barrels, which were then set alight. Pretty bloody stuff. But we'll leave the High Street for a few minutes. Then we'll bring you more gore, blood and guts.
I think the government stinks. And I think the last government stank. And what's more, I think the government even before that stank. Whether I believe that or not is quite irrelevant. What is important is whether I can say it without being locked up by the King's men. It wasn't always so.
The rights enjoyed in a free democracy started right here. It was here, near to the High Street, that blood was shed in the name of freedom. It was match of the day, the King versus the barons. King Henry III was roundly defeated at the Battle of Lewes, just on the edge of the town. Despite holding the castle, the king's men were put to the sword, and many were massacred in both the huge priory, which stood near the town, and right here in our bloody High Street. Panicking soldiers were easy pickings for the pursuing forces of Simon de Montfort. The Battle of Lewes is said to be the first step towards democracy in this country. That was in 1243.
When you say the Battle of Lewes to most people around this country now, they glance at you with vacant eyes. They don't know what it's about. What was it about?
Well, you're right. Most people here don't know about it. What happened was Simon de Montfort and his barons were arguing with the king and his men about representation in Parliament, whereas the king, the king just had all of his men and a lot of his French relatives in Parliament, and he was taxing the barons very heavily, and all of this money was going to the French relatives or going abroad, and the barons were not very happy about this. So they wanted at least half of the 24 men in Parliament to be elected barons. So, I mean, though it's not very democratic in the sense that we have it today, it's the start of that representation of a view that is not just the king's view on how things should be run. Simon de Montfort got to hear that the king was down at the Priory of St. Pancras. And why he was there was for the Feast of St. Pancras in the middle of May. And of course it was a big feast, and people would come from all over the world, actually, or all over Europe, to the feast. So he needed somewhere as big as the Priory to be able to feed all these people and entertain them for a few days. And that's why he was here. Simon de Montfort was up country in northern Sussex in some of his estates with his men, and he heard that the king was down here, and he sent messengers he sent bishops of Winchester and London down with money, with £30,000, which is a fortune in those days, to try and negotiate a settlement with the king. The king was a little bit reticent to go into war with Simon de Montfort because, yes, they were brother-in-laws, and he was an old man. They were in their late 50s at the time. Not that that's old now, but it was then. But the king's brother, Richard of Alamein, also called King of the Romans, etc., he wanted war. And, of course, Prince Edward, hothead, he definitely wanted war. So they settled, the ransom money was sent back, and the envoys, the bishops, were sent back, and so it was war the next day. They negotiated the Mise of Lewis, most of which was, yes, we took this castle, well, we give you it back, and you give us this, and we'll ransom this man and that man for this man and that kind of thing. But it also set down where the king would say, 24 of the 24, we're going to have 12 elected barons, so that we're going to have the beginning of a parliamentary election. And Simon de Montfort made the king hand over his seals, which meant that the king had no power. So Simon de Montfort became the de facto king. It changed the king's complete and outright power. And Prince Edward then went on to, as king, ratify the clauses of the Magna Carta and the provisions of Oxford. And those began to change the king's power. And it also meant things like, if a woman died as a widow, her dowry money was hers. It didn't need to be given over to her husband's family and sons and what have you.
There's a start of women's rights as well.
There you go.
My goodness me.
There you go. The Normans did it for us.
The man who gave the name to the House of Commons, and according to at least one historian, named America the United States, preached his heretical views in the town's pubs. Here we go again. Pubs in Lewis. You can't get away from them. There's a tale handed down from Crown landlord to Crown landlord that Tom Paine was barred from drinking in that bar because he harassed and harangued the regulars to the point where they wouldn't drink anymore. They were fed up with Tom preaching the rights of man. So he walked across the street to the coaching inn, the White Hart, where a more lenient landlord turned a blind eye, or, a more likely, a deaf ear to the ravings of this revolutionary.
It seemed that he used to like to spend his social hours here and his active political discussion times here in volatile discussion with a group which I believe we thought was called the Headstrong Club, because it still meets today and they call it the Headstrong Club today. But I gather from a local historian that it was called the White Hart Dining Club. Oh. And Thomas Paine, up in our sheriff's room, the oak-panelled function room, basically plotted the American Revolution and for a struggle for independence, which resulted in the final Declaration of Independence, an authenticated copy of which we have in the sheriff's room, and he was credited with originating that, and in turn he dubbed the White Hart Hotel as the cradle of American independence.
He had some remarkable phrases, didn't he? I mean, according to Bill Bryson, he coined the first time the phrase the House of Commons, and also Bryson says that he coined the phrase the United States. So now the White Hart goes down in history as the cradle of independence. It's wonderful. But whoever the landlord was at the time embraced him and said, "Come on in, we love to hear you talk."
It certainly wasn't me. No, you're right. And yes, I think probably as any hotelier, always keen for a little bit of business, and it developed into quite an active dining club, I gather, because they had their volatile political discussions over dinner.
No record of you throwing him out of the hotel?
No, but I have to say that during the times that they have met here recently, we've had some very interesting volatile speakers, lots of celebrities, actors, and I remember Tony Benn's voice drilling through the sheriff's room door. It said, I ought not say too much, but it said that a lot of decisions are made here after the council chambers has closed. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think Lewis has embraced Thomas Paine very well. I'm very proud of him because he lived just up the road in the Bull Inn, and of course it was a very easy little trot. And even after he had imbibed, he wouldn't have far to go.
So our Tom, getting nowhere at home, he worked briefly as a customs officer in this house here. Married the boss's daughter in the church here, within the town's walls. Then took off to America.
In Lewis, he was ranting. In the colonies, he was making sense.
He preached revolution, and revolution was what he got. The American colonies broke away to form a new country, the United States. There are many more buildings that either face or back onto the high street. Lewis Prison is a few hundred yards up the road. It has held many famous people, including pop star Mick Jagger. Jagger famously talked his way to a prison phone, called the White Hart Hotel, and ordered a takeaway, which was duly delivered. Tucked away behind these buildings was a naval prison. 250 Russian prisoners captured in a naval battle in the Crimea War were incarcerated here in 1854. Life was harsh for the ratings, but the officers roamed the town at will, socializing with the locals and dining at the tables of the high and the mighty in Lewis. 17 of the ratings died while in prison, and a monument to them stands in the graveyard of a local church. This impressive structure was built by Tsar Alexander II, and its upkeep is still paid for by the Russian embassy in London. There are many other events that make the High Street interesting. The days of great circuses parading their animals. The Prince Regent winning a bet, driving a coach and four down the cobbled street. It's a wonder he didn't break his neck. So today I've taken a snapshot look at Lewis High Street. High Street UK. Every high street has a history. And there are thousands of high streets across the country. And this is just one of them. More high street tales tomorrow. Meanwhile, where's that pint?
Oh, there you've got a little snapshot history of Lewis. We go into a bit more detail each Tuesday. There are 8 episodes, so stand by for the next 8 Tuesdays. And you'll learn a little bit more each week. Let me just give you the front pages again before we take a break. Starting off with the sun. Great to see you again, Kate, in reference to the fact that the Princess of Wales was spotted shopping yesterday. The Mail. Harry and Meghan are downgraded by the palace, saying that on their website, royal website, they have much less prominence than they did have. The Express. Migrants chosen for the first flight to Rwanda in the spring. Rishi Sunak faces the vote on his legislation today in the House of Commons. Plenty of opposition there, I may say. The Times, Sunak risks losing key votes on Rwanda bill. The House of Lords, particularly, are not very happy with it. Celebrity 16-8 fast doubles the risk of dying. The fashionable fast again, eat again, fast again, which helps you to lose weight particularly quickly, could also kill you, according to the Metro. The Daily Telegraph, Ms. Reeves says Britain faces a 1979 moment, likening herself to Margaret Thatcher. That there's going to be a sea change, that things are going to get much, much better the moment that she and her boss are in power. In the Mirror, I will not let you down, says Keir Starmer, talking to its readers and saying that his plan for Britain will transcend any problems that the Tories have had with their legislation. The energy customers set for payouts worth billions in a scandal that's bigger than PPI. It appears that some of the suppliers have been hiding charges in their bills. Naughty, naughty, naughty. The Financial Times, Deloitte launches biggest shakeup in a decade as the markets a slowdown appears. And Netanyahu calls tensions rise in the Middle East, as if they're not high enough already. In the Daily Star, a race to snaffle £13 billion worth of gold lying on the bottom of the Caribbean Sea for 300 years. Apparently one of our ships sunk a Spanish galleon. Yes, a Spanish galleon with £13 billion worth of gold on board. And it went to the bottom. And there it's been lying. And now some adventurers are going to try and get it back up again. So there we are. That's the first hour of the day with news and views and some background of who we are, why we are, where we are. We'll be back with a little bit of frippery we're going to enjoy this morning. A few programs from our past. Time to take stock. And why not? We'll be back with you in about 5 or 10 minutes. And in the meantime, remember where we're broadcast from.
From Lewis in a black horse